Hello and welcome to the Azure Hybrid Operations and Management session. My name is Vlad Jovanovic, and I'm a program manager working in the Azure core organization focused on ARM and governance scenarios. In this session, we're going to discuss the challenges we have heard from customers like you, and I will also share how at Microsoft and I've personally experienced these different challenges and how we've adapted or evolved to this new normal. Then we will discuss what Azure offers in terms of management and governance, and drill into 3 areas in more depth: organize and govern, hybrid, and deploy and automate. Now, before we get started, I want to share a bit of my background. I've worked at Microsoft for a while, starting right out of college, initially working on the management layer of Windows called WMI, as we invested to make Windows the easiest to manage OS. And I worked on MOM 2000 and worked on this on-prem software release for 12 years across 9 major releases. Initially starting on managing Windows and Microsoft workloads, but also evolving to managing Linux, network, third-party, and custom applications. Then, as the industry and Microsoft transitioned to offering services rather than customers like yourselves needing to be responsible for installing, upgrading, and scaling, where Microsoft or a software vendor provided just for the remote support. This is where I would say I started my second chapter of my career, where I transitioned to building services and realized that even though we were still writing code and releasing it, the whole process was very different than releasing on-prem software, where you, the customer, was responsible for all of this upgrade, install, and scale. There are also many other differences that come along with this transition, where the speed and the cadence of updating the software isn't in years, but is in days or even hours. The responsibility for quality doesn't go down, but since vendor-managed software as a service could be deployed daily versus yearly, you can't do things manually anymore. Everything needs to be automated through a pipeline or a release task. There is also many differences with data. With on-prem software releases, you could see the sales data and the support metrics, but very little in between in the life cycle of a customer. With online services that are updated daily, user requests are typically directly visible, and there's signals you can leverage that you couldn't dream of leveraging in the past. And this is the most exciting part about this next upcoming decade of what we see in software. The ability to solve business problems and evaluate opportunities through technology and leveraging services is just incredible. I've joked with customers that this transition for me personally has been like evolving from extracting oxygen from the air around us with lungs to learning how to extract oxygen out of water through gills, and then swimming from fresh water to salt water and right back again. There are some aspects that are the same, but many are different. And it's okay to find these challenges hard. They are hard. Your company depends on you to figure out what is in the realm of possible, and then rate this compared to your company's level of risk versus reward. On a personal front, I enjoy the great outdoors here in Seattle, and when not on a trail, I could be found renovating something in our old home, including this attic where I'm recording this video for you. Without further ado, let's jump right in. So the problem that we see from many companies that we've talked to like yours are really 3 main challenges we hear consistently. One is your existing systems. These change slowly. They often run the business and have evolved extremely slowly over time. Gartner refers to these as your systems of record. Number 2 is your new services, where you're rapidly iterating to generate something new. Some customer direct system, some partner online catalog or online ordering system. Gartner refers to these as your systems of engagement. And these 2 groups need to be managed very differently. And that is inherently where the problem lies. As you and your teams, just like ours here at Microsoft, we all learned around the first type of system. And this gets us to the 3rd challenge, where the state of evolution is happening so rapidly, you need to ensure your existing systems are running and making sure the new systems are leveraging modern application stacks. And then do it all the while you and your colleagues are learning what is possible with these new systems. new technologies like Kubernetes and containers, cloud services or software as a service, along with new rapid iteration processes like DevOps, or leveraging IoT systems or real-time data, all the while ensuring your customers' data isn't compromised, the security of your services is completely sound, and other compliance requirements are all in check. A huge undertaking. This takes getting out of your comfort zone and staying customer focused and continually building, measuring, and learning and iterating through that cycle as quickly as is a path to success and something we here at Microsoft continue to leverage. So now what do we see is as we've all pivoted our software to running in Azure and leverage all of these different rich services and resources available in Azure that we've pivoted our software for, and this includes from your VM-based IaaS workloads to leveraging PaaS services or even software service resources where you get the feature and requirements you need and you don't need to care about all of the underlying implementation. Now, what does a unified operations and control look like? Well, there are 6 aspects that each Azure service or resource should allow, including the ability to organize and govern it, so you can spin it, and the ability to secure and protect it, the ability to monitor it in a consistent way, and finally, a way to automate and deploy it, so you can spin it up seconds before you need it and delete it as soon as you know. Azure allows your entire application to be software defined through configuration. This needs to apply to your resources across any location. It also needs to support your existing applications where quality, reliability, and stability is paramount, as well as your new applications that are being born now leveraging the latest data and application stacks. There are over 20 different services that are part of the management and governance category in Azure today that contribute to this unified operations and control, including services such as Azure Monitor, a consistent way to configure, enable, view, and alert over diagnostic logs and metrics, Azure Policy for specifying business rules on which services and resources can be used, in which locations, and with what configuration, or Azure Security Center for ensuring your services are always secured and protected, or Application Insights to ensure your application's most important business metrics are tracked and alerted against not only the CPU and memory of your VMs, to cost management so you can ensure you are being fiscally responsible and ensuring you have optimized SKUs and shut down or delete resources you do not need to save costs and pay for what your app and customers really need, to Azure Advisor, a service that surfaces reliability, security, performance, and cost recommendations and best practices that you can easily apply. In this session, we're going to focus on 3 areas. Organize and govern. Let's talk about that. Azure provides capabilities to organize your resources into these things called resource groups, which are contained in subscriptions, which can be within 7 levels of management groups. We call all of these 3 things scopes. They are all stored within an Azure Active Directory tenant, so you can easily give users and groups access to the right resources, leveraging standard or custom roles that expose access to just the right granular permissions. Azure Policy can be leveraged to enable compliance or regulatory scenarios at any one of these different scopes, where different policy effects can either audit and report compliance issues, or could even block the resources from being created, or could automatically update the resource to be compliant. For example, if a VM is created and diagnostics isn't enabled, policy could be used to automatically update the VM to be in compliance. Your resources across these scopes need to be available through clients like the portal or queries and API scenarios. And we have a service called Azure Resource Graph that you can quickly query for resources across any of these scopes. In the area of hybrid, we know you have resources spread over clouds, on-prem data centers, and you don't have a single way to control or configure them. Azure through Arc provides a way to expose these outside of Azure resources to be resources in Azure. So you can leverage the same unified operations and control system. So you can give users access to resources in one way. You can view all of your resources like VMs in one list across Azure and outside of Azure, and you can apply common policies to all of them. And the deploy and automate side, as we've said before, everything in the cloud can be software defined. And continually deploying and managing the state of the cloud through automation is key. There are many ways you can ensure you are adopting an infrastructure as code approach. Azure has a declarative code file called an ARM template that allows you to specify resources and configuration for your application in a JSON file that you can easily deploy for your different application environments. This declarative approach can also be used to configure all of your scopes, including management groups, subscriptions, roles, policies, so you can provide your team landing zones for all of the applications where they can deploy their resources that are configured for success. Finally, the CAF, or the Cloud Adoption Framework, is an online resource for all of your cloud adoption needs, from getting started to strategy to plan to be ready, migrate, innovate, govern, manage, and finally organize. Now let's take a look at this from an architecture point of view. Azure customers access Azure through clients like the portal, CLI, PowerShell, or programmatically through SDKs or directly REST API. Azure resources today are provided from around 200 different services, are available across Azure regions, zones, and each resource or service exposes a consistent way to be created, deleted, organized, secured, protected, monitored, and automated. As we extend Azure to any region, Arc provides a connection to these resources outside of Azure that brings them in to be controlled through the unified operations and control system that we've been talking about. As our large organizations adopt the cloud, we've seen a central cloud of excellence teams form that define common policies and structures and organizations and things like tags for all resources. This includes the hierarchy of management groups where these scopes can have users and group authorization, as well as policies specified them that inherit to child management groups or subscriptions, to tag-based rules that can ensure all of the resources created in a certain scope can be tagged in a common way to enable business scenarios like chargeback. This scales to as many teams as you have, as we use all of these same capabilities here at Microsoft to manage all of the Microsoft teams that use Azure to be compliant, secure, managed, and well-governed. Here's an example of a detailed policy, setting a certificate expiration policy at a scope and how it applies to resources both in Azure and other clouds, your data center through Arc. One of our big investments over the last year has been around Arc. Both Arc-enabled infrastructure, including servers, which is now generally available, while Kubernetes and SQL Server Arc is in preview, and Arc-enabled scenario services like SQL Managed Instance or PostgreSQL, which are also in preview. These provide those connections to Azure's unified operations and control, so that these resources can be organized, governed, secured, protected, monitored, deployed, and automated, just like resources running in Azure locations can. To see what this looks like, let's switch to a demo by Lior and check it out. Take it away, Lior.
In today's demo, we're going to talk about Contoso Azure-based unified operations, and specifically the way Contoso are performing monitoring for their Azure resources. Contoso just bought Woodgrove Bank, and Woodgrove Bank has multiple IT assets, including VMware virtual machines and Kubernetes clusters deployed in Google Cloud Platform. The IT department at Woodgrove Bank are performing their VMware monitoring using the vSphere client interface that you're seeing right here. In Google Cloud Platform, we can see a couple of Kubernetes clusters hosting Woodgrove Bank web and e-commerce applications. And the IT department at Woodgrove Bank are performing monitoring for these clusters using the Google Cloud Platform monitoring interface. So as you can see, the IT department are facing a challenge. They have two interfaces. One, the vSphere client for VMware monitoring, and the other one is the Google Cloud Platform console for Kubernetes monitoring. Contoso, who just bought Woodgrove Bank, are now the owner of these IT assets. And using Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes and Azure Arc enabled servers, they are able to extend the Azure Resource Manager control plane and bring those IT assets and project those as first-class citizens inside Azure. If I'll go to one of these Azure Arc enabled servers, again, this is the VMware virtual machine that we're seeing right here. Under the Insights view, we are able to see some performance and telemetry coming from that machine. The first view is the map view showing the ports being used by that virtual machine and how it interacts with it, and also some important metadata coming from that machine. In the Performance tab, we can see performance metrics and telemetry coming from that machine. So this is the same view that Contoso would have had on an Azure-based virtual machine. Now it has it on an Azure Arc-enabled server. In addition, you can see policies, update management, inventory, and change tracking. So really, everything that Contoso need in order to perform unified operations against resources that are deployed outside of Azure, but now being projected as first-class citizen. I'll switch back to the Contoso resource group, and we can see the Kubernetes clusters that are now onboarded as Arc-enabled Kubernetes clusters. And I'll click on one of those clusters, and I'll go to the Insights view. Now, using Azure Monitor for containers, we are able to see performance metrics coming from the Kubernetes clusters deployed outside of Azure. This is the same view that Contoso would have had on AKS clusters deployed as first-class citizen native offering inside Azure. So we can see some performance metric coming. If I'll switch to the containers view, we can see some performance metrics coming from those specific containers deployed on the cluster. Under the nodes view, we can see some important telemetry coming from that cluster deployed in Google Cloud Platform. So again, really everything that Contoso needs in order to start looking at resources deployed outside of Azure, inside Azure, and perform unified operations on top of those. So in this demo, we showed you how resources that are deployed outside of Azure can be brought using Azure Arc-enabled Kubernetes and Azure Arc-enabled servers into Azure and being projected as first-class citizens to support unified operations at scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Lior, for the great demo. Hopefully you are as excited as we are about trying these hybrid scenarios out, and we are really looking forward to your feedback on them during the previews. The next area of focus is around automation and deployment. As your entire IT estate becomes digital and software defined and deployed, each build or something as frequent as daily, you just can't be doing things manually and scaling people where software can. One of our recent investments in this area is taking this automation to the next level, where you enable a virtual machine to be auto-managed, and that's it. Azure takes care of the rest by auto-scaling the VM to reduce cost or auto-enabling other best practices in terms of configuration and security, so your workloads are more available, reliable, and performant. This is in preview now for Windows, and Linux will be coming soon next year, so you can give it a try and let us know what you think. The next area in automation and deployment that I want to talk about is this DevOps cyclical process. And for me, it comes down to three things. How are you building, measuring, and learning? And really, that's it. It's the speed at which you turn through this process that you're trying to improve and get faster and faster, especially faster than your competition, or else they end up learning faster than you are. It again comes down to understanding who is your customer and really ground yourself in that clarity for different application types. Your internal customer could be another internal team or could be all internal teams building software. Then, something similar we talked about during the organize and govern session, there are likely many teams you are responsible for enabling. Understanding how your DevOps process scales to all of the business units is important to ensure cloud best practices are continually applied and enforced. Hopefully, you're thinking about leveraging DevOps processes for your infrastructure as code. There are third-party tools like HashiCorp's Terraform that could help here, as well as Azure native ARM templates that are JSON files for declaratively specifying resources and their configuration. We are also investing in a new language that's codenamed Bicep to further simplify the experience. As we've seen, many customers build and maintain a service catalog of ARM templates, allowing other teams to leverage them for secure best practice configuration or common ARM resources like VMs, application gateways, or even load balancers. We continue to invest in making it easy to get started with ARM templates through Learn modules, export capabilities for resources not created through templates, and to help you test and validate your templates with a new what-if capability, along with template testing toolkit that you can enable in your continuous integration and continuous development practices. We have many integrations with CI/CD tooling like Azure DevOps, GitHub, and have a new resource type called a deployment script, which can run PowerShell or Bash for things not exposed through an ARM template. But it's still part of your application configuration. Example, maybe you have a service principal that needs to be created or a file that needs to be uploaded to a blob container. There's also a new resource called Template Specs coming that's going to be in preview in October for resources that can be created for publishing your approved ARM templates so that other teams can leverage them. Azure Backup Center, which is in public preview right now, has enabled a new native management capability to manage your entire backup estate from a central console. The Backup Center provides customers with the capability to monitor, operate, govern, and optimize data protection at scale in a unified manner consistent with Azure native management paradigms. With Backup Center, you get an aggregated view of your inventory across subscriptions, locations, resource groups, vaults, and even tenants using Lighthouse. From Backup Center, you can trigger your backup-related activities, such as configuring backup, restore, creation of policies or vaults, all from a single place. We continue to invest in System Center for customers who are managing their data center and cloud resources from System Center. And we're continuing to invest in this transition that we've discussed. And System Center is no different in that we want to integrate it with this unified operations and control capability, just as we've discussed, that applies to Azure and off Azure resources through Arc. On the announcement side, we've mentioned a number of these through the talk already. Some we haven't had that I'd like to call out. In Organize and Govern, there is a new management group hierarchy and VM power state capability that's available in Azure Resource Graph. Policy now exposes a way to allow exemptions and the data plane and offers a data plane policy for configuring Azure Kubernetes is also available. In the monitor bucket, there's a new network monitoring is generally available. We're also announcing a preview of a Datadog on Azure service that allows you to easily sign up for and configure resources to manage with Datadog, all through the unified operations and control system. In the Protect side, we have a zonal disaster recovery that's GA, and there's a capability to move resources from one region to another that's in public preview. In the deployment side, we have the new deployment script and what if resources are available, and a preview for template specs that's coming in October, along with the Virtual Machine Manager 2019 update rollout 2. In the secure bucket, we have a security center and Sentinel update for supporting Arc-enabled servers that are generally available. And lastly, in automate, we have update management, which is in private preview. Now, from the next step side, I'd like to make sure you take 3 takeaways that I'll leave you with. One is check out the Cloud Adoption Framework if you haven't already. This is a great resource filled with content to help you get started and raise your confidence around adopting Azure and help you sell the why for certain approaches. 2, try out Arc for Server on Windows and Linux outside of Azure. Bring those resources into Azure and really try to manage them and view them all from a central console through Azure. 3, build your infrastructure as code approach through ARM templates. Leverage the new what-if capabilities, deployment script template, testing kit, and template spec resources that we've been investing in, and check out the new Bicep language. Lastly, there are many resources that are available to get you going or refine your path or conviction if you have already started your journey to the cloud. And with that, I'd like to say congratulations. You made it all the way to the end. Thank you for listening, and I really hope you have a great day. I look forward when we can be together at a conference and in front of whiteboards. Until then, be safe. I'm Vlad J. at Microsoft if you have any questions, comments, or want to continue the conversation. Thank you.